In a space surrounded by darkness, a young magician experimented on a poor victim, turning his body inside out. The victim was moaning and screaming in pain, but there was nothing more he could do. The magician only grinned and made a light pass with his hand, and the green ripples around the victim began to thicken strongly. All this was accompanied by the same incredible cries of pain. After all, a man turned inside out was still alive. But it wasn't for long. The human-shaped form fell apart a minute later, falling to the ground with a piece of meat. The green smoke that surrounded the poor victim began to disperse, and his shadow tends to the owner. Ahaha, that's nice. A young magician, dressed in ordinary peasant clothes, smiled with the face of a bloody maniac, which were available at that time: a white shirt and trousers with straps. For several days now, the magician has been performing cruel tortures on his deceived victims. It happened after a certain young guy working on a farm saw something sparkling, and therefore decided to find out what it was. It was an ordinary book, nothing surprising, he thought, but he was curious about what was written there. So he decided to find out about it in detail. After work, days passed after this discovery, and all sorts of strange things began to happen in the village. The people of the village began to disappear one by one. It also happened that sometimes people found the corpses of mutilated animals in the vicinity of their homes, so disfigured that any ripper could envy the killer for the work done. They appreciated the tormentors' work every time they saw their creations on the streets of the village. They asked themselves the only rhetorical question: what kind of voluptuousness did they do it with? All this was the handiwork of that man. At one point, from a good family man, he became a brutal killer. The reason for the man's follies was in the content of the book. After all, there was knowledge of necromancy in the book, knowledge that was forbidden for an ordinary person. An ordinary person would not be interested in such a thing for fear of the law. But there was nothing he could do about it. The book seemed to be calling him, forcing them to check certain experiments, which can be noticed, were worse and disgusting than the previous one. So the number of victims of the man increased from day to day, until he realized that he had received enough strength from the sacrifices. Therefore, he decided to openly show his superiority over others, creating his experiments right on the street, killing his former friends and relatives. He thought that others should also understand the beauty of this work, and willingly shared his knowledge with everyone.